top of the morning. I'm tired as fuck. I need to stop staying up. But I did because there was some late night games and late night drama. I wouldn't say drama. No reason to scroll back at chat last night. There's absolutely nothing going on irrelevant. But anyways, we are late in the season, boys, and we got some important games and important matchups to go over. First and foremost, last night a game occurred. South Carolina versus Texas A&M. It's a top 5 matchup. Number 3 versus number 5, and A&M came firing out of the gate. I mean, if they wanted verts, they got verts. If they wanted runs, they got runs. They were getting the Lenora Sellers. They were keeping Lenora Sellers down. There wasn't a whole lot that South Carolina was doing right for probably the first third of this football game. And then the fourth quarter hits. Actually, closer to the third quarter, a couple, good drives. Able to find Nick Harbor. There was one where, kind of found Nick Harbor. Crosser had a blocker downfield, was able to run. So big, finally getting those big chunk plays he was looking for. Using Sellers on the ground to kind of pick up big gains instead of relying on kind of big play verts to get him in good scenarios. And next thing you know, we've got an 11-point game. And then King was able to kind of manage that. Now, that is where, quote unquote, the controversy lies. So I shall explain. First and foremost, I love King, so he needs to chill that. But last night King was on another one, so we're gonna let everybody be safe from criticism. However, what I will say is just keep in mind, everybody, that we use 8-minute quarters for a reason. We are looking for a sim league with about 45-ish minute games. Nobody wants to play super long, but also nobody wants to come out and play a 30-minute game, right? While you are welcome to play possession football, I get that is a strategy. Unfortunately, while we shrink the quarters, the clock can still be ran as if it was a real 15-minute quarter clock in terms of timing. And there are scenarios. There hasn't been one, and for what it's worth, King didn't do this. So just to be clear, this is more of a heads up than it is an accusatory you're about to get suspended. But if you are looking at this game and you're going, man, I'm up a bit in the fourth, you're absolutely right. You do not have to come to the line of scrimmage, snap the football, and go. You do not need to hop into no huddle. You do not need to go NASCAR tempo. You could breathe, come to the line, take a bit to take your play, right? There's crafty ways to do this, right? Snap the ball around 10 seconds. Nobody hates you on that. It's just, hey, don't come to the line with 6 minutes left in the fourth and start just standing there. You know what I mean? You want to bleed a little bit of clock, do it crafty. But every single play, running it down to 4 or 5 seconds like it's a G-Money game is not what we're looking for, because of the idea that somebody could literally bleed half a quarter on a single drive. And you might be going, but that's a strategy. Yes, I get that's a strategy. But there's some things that are bigger for the league, okay? We ask people not to use the chew clock feature so this doesn't happen automatically. Yes. And we are saying that at the end of games, hey, 3 minutes, or even 4 minutes, on that 4-minute mark, halfway through the fourth quarter, okay. Okay, now you don't have to, if you want to take your time and really, really melt it, make them use their timeouts, okay. But if you could have a drive that starts at almost the beginning of the fourth quarter, move 30 yards but bleed half the quarter. All right, let's just asking that we don't do that. King didn't do that. He went down to 10, then to 7, then to 7, then all the way down to 1 on one possession. Okay, I can live with that. But just for the betterment of the league, people might be like, but why would I do that? Why would I willingly give him the ball back? You're absolutely right. But how many times has somebody on the team that you've played in a comeback has not done those things? And that would be what I ask for, right? I always think about all those times that you may have benefited in a comeback because somebody didn't come out and bleed the ever-living shit out of the clock and let us play football, right? All right, moving on from that point, A&M was able to win. And now let's take a look at these important matchups kind of over mainly this week, but over the next couple weeks for the conference. So ACC seems all about wrapped up right now. Clemson, Big win against FSU. I mean, dominant. And guess what? I mean, Pitjaz maybe kind of struggled a bit early, got his 2 losses out of the way early, has been on an absolute heater. So Jake has figured some stuff out there. Clemson themselves are a very difficult team to deal with. And as a result, here we are. Had to make sure I had my badge for work. So yeah, that's the ACC. Looking forward to that matchup. UNC, Clemson, it's a rematch. They've played. UNC was able to win that game late. So what's it going to look like now that Clemson's kind of got things a little bit figured out? It'll also be neutral ground, so no home field advantage for anybody. I can't remember who was home on that one prior. Big 12. I mean, after this kind of win, I mean, A&M and Ole Miss is going to be a banger. They're kind of the top, unless I don't know if they even have any conference games that aren't user. Ole Miss only has user games or CPU games. I don't know who A&M would play. But even if they did lose a game, they do have the tiebreaker with Auburn after the head-to-head. So it's looking like those two are going to be the Big 12 championship game. And Ole Miss won the original one. But again, every those early games in the season, they matter, but they don't. And what I mean by that is in terms of who's going to be predicting, who's on the heater now, who's got their shit figured out. And again, the big kicker is no home field advantage for anybody in that game. So it's going to be, team versus team, user versus user, no extenuating factors, no negative roles because somebody's got a bunch of drunk 18-year-olds in the crowd. Got it. Big Ten championship. So Penn State and Oklahoma seem to be the two teams that are going to be leading here. Ohio State is coming off of a win against Penn State. So should Penn State lose, I think they've got a CPU game against Michigan, then they would be out. But outside of that, I do not think there's a case where anybody else but those two play the Big Ten championship. This is super interesting, right? I don't think anybody, no disrespect to Joey, expected Joey to be kind of leading the division. He's got to win against Warren. He's got to win against Ohio State. Like Oklahoma, John Mateer, Jay Knott. This is a good offense for a guy who plays like Joey. So that'll be a fun one. Penn State, they're extremely consistent. There's been grumblings and rumblings around the league. Who's the guy to watch out for? And people are saying that Austin right now is the guy to watch out for. So that'll be a fun one. Big Ten championship, Oklahoma, Penn State, unless Penn State loses to Michigan. Notre Dame obviously just has to keep on keeping on. They should be on their way to the college football playoffs. Expect them to be in a conference next year. SEC. So SEC ball, this is where it gets really interesting. Texas seems to be clear to the number 1 spot, so not really much I think Texas has to worry about. Texas will play Ohio State this week. That's a pretty big matchup, big team matchup, CM matchup. Doesn't hold as much meaning to Texas outside of maintaining a perfect season versus Ohio State, who, if Ohio State isn't going to get a bid into their conference championship game, they're going to be looking for one of the remaining 7 slots in the college football playoffs. And, they need it. They need it in a bad way. And not only that, Ohio State in their next 3 games will be playing Ohio State in their next 2 games will be playing Texas at home and LSU on the road. So that is a gauntlet, assuming Donnie isn't too busy twerking in the Caribbean or whatever the fuck he sent on the videos. So, yeah, that's the SEC's leader right there, Texas. Then you have a matchup that's going to happen this week. 2 users that started really, really hot and have found slumps at different times. South Carolina has 2 losses after starting the season like 8-0. I don't think he's going to drop out of the top 10, but he needs to get back to getting a rematch. He needs to get things right. He will be facing Florida, heads up, here soon. Florida, as we know, has been number 1 ranked in the country at some point this season, but lost a couple games and is now looking for his big chance a big win against South Carolina would propel him to the SEC championship game. So that is a head-to-head matchup to determine who will play Texas in the SEC championship. I believe that is next week. I thought it was this week, but it's next week. So yeah, that's going to be an absolute banger. The two top quarterbacks in the league, Sellers and Lagway. Lagway's leading the Heisman right now. Obviously, the extender is crazy. Sellers has had to deal with some really, really good defenses. Florida, while solid, is not Texas and not necessarily A&M. So it'll be very interesting to see, what quarterback kind of shines in this kind of head-to-head scenario. So excited for that. Finally, the Pac-12, which is going to break my brain. So currently with the Pac-12 lead with no losses is P-Town. The only game that he plays left, I believe he plays USC. I believe that is his only conference game left. He plays USC. He might have another one, but that's the only user one left. Okay. So assuming... I'm not even going to say assuming, right? So after that, there are 3 teams with 1 loss in the conference. That being Utah, the number 2 ranked team in the nation, UCLA, who has beaten Utah, and then USC, who Utah has beaten, but USC and UCLA play here soon. So here's what could happen. If USC loses to ASU's in. So ASU controls their destiny. Right? They beat USC. They're into the Pac-12 championship. Full stop. That would then leave Utah and UCLA tied at 1 loss in the conference. And USC beating UCLA would send Utah to the conference championship game to play. But if UCLA wins, they actually are the only team to have beaten Utah this year. So UCLA would move on. So we have a scenario where the number 11 team and the number 19 team in the country could play in the championship game over the number 2 team in the country, Utah, because of the week 1 loss that UCLA dealt Utah, which is pretty crazy. And that's kind of, that's what we're here for, right? Conference games matter more. Utah has done a great job, but we're not, you drop a game early and it comes back to haunt you. But haunt you in what sense? Let's talk about the updates to the college football playoffs. So if you don't remember, last year, to get a first-round bye, you had to be a conference winner. That is not the case this year. Yes, conference championship winners are guaranteed spots in the college football playoff, but no longer are they guaranteed first-round byes. That is determined now by seeding. So that will come down to your record and stuff. So Utah, should they maintain this number 2 seed throughout the rest of the season, and they've got 2 tough games. They got Georgia at home next week, and then they've got Penn State on the road at Beaver Stadium the week after. So Utah, let's just be clear, we're assuming Utah goes through that gauntlet unscathed, but they could very well not play in a championship game and then have the first round bye. It's like probably, I would imagine at that point, they're either the number 1 or number 2 seed, pending how things with Texas works out. So interesting stuff there. Now, let's run this back really quick. Let's say USC pulls it off and beats P-Town. Well, now we have a 4-way tie for first place in the Pac-12. Now, again, USC and UCLA, one of them will knock each other out in this scenario. Right? So we're almost guaranteed a 3-way tie at some point. Either it's going to be a 3-way tie for the second place seed to play P-Town, or P-Town drops a game and then USC and UCLA beat each other. In that case, it's kind of the same scenario. Well, I don't know. This is what actually, yeah. So let's say P-Town loses. Everybody has 1 loss. USC beats UCLA. Well, that's going to hand Utah a trip to the title game because they've beaten USC and they lost UCLA. But USC will then have the tiebreaker over ASU. So the Pac-12 championship game would look like USC versus Utah. Got it. If P-Town loses that game to USC and then UCLA beats USC, now we have a weird scenario because UCLA has it over Utah, but I think he lost to Arizona State. Utah hasn't played, Utah hasn't played Arizona State at all. So there's not a tiebreaker there. So, and UCLA is over Utah, and yeah. I don't think I think Arizona State played UCLA and beat them. So this is like red lines on the paper all over the place. So just the whole point is absolute chaos could occur. We have a scenario where Utah and USC could play. We have a scenario where ASU and UCLA will play, or ASU and Utah will play, or fucking who knows? Who knows? I think at this point USC's got the most pressure. And the reason why is because they need to win 2 user games to put themselves in that spot. And then if they win, they're in for the college football playoffs. However, Utah is not in this major stress scenario, because as long as they end the season, I would say as long as they win, one of their next 2 games and end the season with 2 losses, they very well may not even have to worry about playing the college football championship and may just enter into the college football playoffs not Pac-12 championship, so they can enter the conference football playoffs with 2 losses and, maybe coast. Do they get the first round bye? I don't necessarily think they do in that scenario, but right now every team in the country has at least 2 losses except for Texas and Utah. So, that was a mouthful. A lot of scenarios and games to watch here. So, but as always, make sure you're keeping up to date with your tab, hitting your ready to advance when you're done. If you missed it, we ranked 83 fucking commits. I will be updating that periodically. Probably not when there's another 80, because that was fucking abysmal. That being said, I am not doing your 3 stars. I'm not. I will put them into a chart, but what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do that on air. In fact, I don't even know if I'm going to do another video. That was exhausting. If you want another video, let me know to keep them updated. My plan with that is to say in like 2 to 3 seasons, we're going to revisit that list once it's all compiled of what our commit rankings are. And we're going to see who's made the most impact. Which guys had the best season? Yeah, we ranked all these quarterbacks, but which one got the starting nod and which one's out here, leading somebody to a championship? So, and that'll be exciting to kind of track those journeys as we go. So, yeah, that's that. Thank you all for listening again. It's up in the morning. Finn, see you.